Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Tuesday Turf Talk with the Lawn Tools. I am Right Tool, Jordan Netzel speaking, and we are honored to have as a guest with us today Dr. Wu from Oklahoma State University. How are you, Dr. Wu?
I'm great. That's a pleasure to talking with these colleagues in the field.
This is going to be exciting. Spin gave me a heads up that we're going to get to hear some secret stuff. Is there any truth to that?
Oh, that's very interesting.
First, what we like to do on this show is sort of find out some helpful information for the homeowners like me, the homeowners who are the listeners. And I thought that since you've done some research on sod, seed, grass in general, maybe the helpful tips for homeowners for this episode could be, how do we establish new sod? What are some best practices for the first thing you should do when you get some new sod?
Well, if you want to get new sod, and then currently we have the best varieties in the certification programs. In my opinion, you need to purchase the certified sprigs or certified sod, then establish your sod. In the U.S., we have certification programs from breeder sod to foundation sod to registered sod, then to certified sod. That last class for commercialization. So if you're going to purchase them, that means they are quality products.
Gotcha. You don't have to pretend too much, but you need to educate me on like a fifth grade level here. So go into a little more detail on those different types. You just gave different classifications for sod. Give us a little bit of an overview of what each of those mean.
Okay. In the seed or vegetative variety increase system, to guarantee the quality, they are 4 classes. First class that's derived from breeders, we call breeder class. Second class, we use breeders' material to establish increase. We call it foundation class. From foundation class, we produce materials to produce the registered class. That's normally go to the sod farmers, okay? They use a registered class increase to produce a certified class. So that's 4 classes. And in almost each United States, or each state of U.S., they are official certifying office or agency. They're going to help to inspect the field, inspect the materials. For example, when we send out the foundation materials from my field, I will do a paperwork. That paper is going to state certifying agency. They will accept that paper, inspect the field, farmer's field, then they produce the registered class. From there, they inspect the field, produce a certified class. So I always encourage you guys and consumers to purchase certified class materials to establish new sod, especially sports field, golf courses, or government projects.
Gotcha. That's actually very insightful. I had no clue, which is sort of the whole point of this entire series, and maybe even Pro Turf Talks in general, is that homeowners like me, we have no idea what goes in on the back end and all the research that you guys do. And apparently all the certifications and the paperwork that you have to go through to get all this done. So I think that's awesome.
Yes, I wish we could do more work, let everyone know that system.
The original then question, if we go back, you said that your first recommendation would be to get a certified sod. So I ordered my certified sod. It got delivered. Now what do I do?
Okay. From there, and each sod farmers, probably they have a collaboration with contractors to install for you. The contractor need to prepare soil for you, or you can use sod, you can use sprigs, you can use plugs, whatever. You need to talk with the sod farmer or the contractor. You can do yourself. Like myself, in my yard, I grew a lot of different Bermuda grasses we produced, and I grew just plugs.
Hey, Jordan, it's Spin. I've got a question for Dr. Wu. Everybody here probably wants to know, how do you go on to plan and get different sods or breeds together and make a certain type of Bermuda? So like Tahoma, for example, Did you get a splice off of Patriot, or did it come from a mother plant like Latitude or Northbridge? How do you come up with the plants and the materials to splice them together to get the type of turf you're looking and you're desired for?
Oh, that's a breeding process, okay? That's a long story, basically. I'm going to use the Tahoma 31 as an example. About 2001, I came to United States, did my PhD study at Oklahoma State University under the professor, Dr. Taliaferro. At that time, we had a group of germplasm from different parts of the world. One specific Bermuda grass collected from Himalayas in China. Well, that grasses showed very good coat hardness, very dark green color. I did the research with that. Also, at OSU, we worked with a Bermuda grass species we called African Bermuda grass. That germplasm collected in a small region in South Africa. We called African Bermuda grass, and we studied this African Bermuda grass specific genotype we called 2747. That's a OSU selection. Then after 2006, OSU hired me as a grass breeder. So I work on them. So I established the crossing blocks. One plant, the common Bermuda grass, comes from Himalayas or mountain food of Tibetan High Plateau. And another grass selected from population from African Bermuda grass. So I made crosses between these two plants. And 2007, established the plots 2006, harvest seed 2007, and germinated seed in the winter of 2007. We germinated probably several thousand seed and 1,000 seedlings. One of them later became Tahoma 31. That is a basic breeding procedure I used.
Yes, it sounds a lot like Patriot. Like
from
Africa.
Well, let me say, Patriot parent, one common Bermuda grass parent of Patriot comes from east part of China, Shanghai. That plant collected by Dr. Glenn Burden in 1974. This Himalaya Bermuda grass I collected in 1998. Similar geographic region. Probably shared some genes, at least I would say dark green genes, right?
So that's where that Dr. Burton developed a 419 on his way back to the United States. He pulled over and saw this grass growing along the highway, and that's what 419 was, right?
419 story is like this, okay? In the 1950s, when Dr. Glenn Burden worked on the turf Bermuda grass, sponsored by U.S. Golf Association that time, and he was looking for something is for golf course, fairways, and sports field, high quality, improved quality over common Bermuda grass. That time, common Bermuda grass was quite cost-textured. So he was so smart. He had a friend working in South Africa. That friend sent him a package of seed. Purposely is African Bermuda grass. However, in that seed, he germinated, probably his technician germinated the seed and transplanted seedlings into the field. He expected African Bermuda grass, but he was so fortunate to find one plant, later become a Tiff or Tifton 419. That was a very dark green color, fine texture, and pretty good drought resistance that time, okay? You know, that is in the 1950s. And he tested and sent out to this plant for 19 to different places, and many people like it. His technician tested the chromosome numbers, found that grass was a hybrid between common Bermuda grass and African Bermuda grass. Because that seed collected from African Bermuda grass, so that mother of that Tiff was African Bermuda grass. And the father is common Bermuda grass, but that's just a putative hybrid. So that's the story of Tiff or Tifton 419. That is actually a hybrid, accidental hybrid, not a purpose hybrid. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that grass performed so well over these so many years. Released in the 1960s, up now, still many places use Tiff. Tiff, if you manage well, still looks pretty good. I highly praise Dr. Glenn Burden's work.
Yeah, it became very popular. Actually, Jordan has it in his front yard.
Really?
Jordan, you still there?
I have Tiffway 419 in my front yard and my backyard, and now in my further backyard, I have Tahoma 31, and then in a tee box on my backyard golf course, we're gonna put down some Ironcutter, some new stuff.
Yes. Oh, Ironcutter is developed by Dr. Tyler Farrell. He was my PhD advisor. He's an elegant person, you know. He is very knowledgeable. His work is very solid. I know the Ironcutter. It's a fine textured, cold hardy grass, turf grass.
I hear that Spin's going to get to sample some of that as well.
Yes, I heard from him the other day. Grasses, they are genetically different. If you try, the different grasses fit in different environments. Even your working experience and working skills, you will find the best one.
So we were talking about it earlier. If I'm getting this new sod and I'm putting it down, so I've kind of cut my grass really short, exposed as much dirt as possible. When I lay that sod down, should I water it, 5 times a day? Should I fertilize it first? Should I fertilize it after? Should I wait to fertilize? What should I do?
Okay, well, if you purchase sod or plant the sprigs, immediately water. You know, that's important to help the grasses produce roots. In my field studies, I always tell my technicians and the graduate students each day probably water 2 times. So each time we give the 1/4 inch for 2 weeks. Probably this is a little bit luxury. If for the homeowners, probably I think 10 days good enough.
And then fertilizing.
Fertilizing in the established stage, I normally do after 2 weeks. You know, before the planting, you have base fertilizers, right? That's a compound fertilizers. Normally, we give the 17 NPK, 400 pounds per acre. Then after you grow your sod, after 2 weeks, they produce solid roots. Then you give nitrogens. Nitrogens initially, we give the 5 grams per square meter per month. You can split it into 2 times. So we use ureas. And after you give the ureas, immediately water them. Use a 1/4 inch rain or 1/4 inch water irrigation to dissolve them into the soil. You will be safe.
Then, mowing. How long should I wait to mow?
Well, mow depending on how tall you're going to cut. Depending on which grasses, your home lawns, you can cut to the 1 inch. You can cut into the 2 inches. I normally like my yard, and if I'm going to cut the grass, I cut down to the 1 inch. When they grow to 1.5 inch, we use a 1/3 rule. Okay, cut once a week. That's good enough. If you want to cut lower, like Tahoma 31 is a little bit different from Tiffway and Latitude. You can cut it very low. Like some of I heard homeowners, they can cut to the 1/4 inch. In our stations, we can cut even to the 1/8 inch. Normally, homeowners don't have that equipment, green mowers, but we have. So you can cut the Tahoma very low.
Yeah, only the really crazy ones have the stuff like that, right?
Yes. That's purposely I selected because in the transition zone, the climate like Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, and many places go to the east, Maryland, Virginia. This strip we call the transition zone. Transition zone, golf courses normally they have a little bit difficulties with turf around the putting greens. They call the collar areas. That Tahoma 31 fit that very well. Also for the high quality, high-end sports field, if they're going to cut to 1/2 inch or lower, if they want to pick up the speed, that is Tahoma's excellent fit.
Yes.
Yes, a teen ground. If they want to cut lower, 300, 350s. That's a Tahoma just feed that well.
So how long before I can treat it like my normal lawn and beat it up really good? If I wanted to scalp it and top dress it with sand and then have it recover just like it would normally, how long will it be ready? Because my Tahoma's been down for a couple of weeks and it's already rooted really strongly. Is it ready now?
I think so,
Right.
But the first time, depends on how tall is your grass now.
Well, it's a couple inches.
Well, you probably cut into the 1 inch, then gradually down to how low you wouldn't get.
Half inch.
Yeah, you probably go to the first time 1.5 inch, then go to the 1 inch, then go to the 3/4 inch, then go to the half inch gradually.
Gotcha. Sounds like a plan to me. I think I've got it figured out.
A lot of fun there,
Hey, I've got another question.
Yes, sir.
Can you take one hybrid, like let's say Patriot, and take another hybrid like Tahoma and splice them together and make another variety of Bermuda?
Let me tell you different the Patriot and Tahoma, okay? Tahoma contains 27 chromosomes. Theoretically, it does not going to produce any fertile pollens, okay?
Right.
Or fertile pollen grains. So they are sterile.
Yes.
All Tahoma grasses plants should be sterile. Patriot a little bit different. Patriot one parent from Africa, another parent from China, collected by Dr. Glenn Burden. Burden was so smart. His eyes very keen, and collect that parent Tiff and Ting. They released probably in the 1990s. And a very dark green color. They observed chromosome number from Tiff and Ting. They found that is they call it hexaploid. That is 54 chromosome numbers. Okay, so Patriot contain 36 chromosomes. Instead, not like Tahoma 27. Chromosomes, if they don't pair well, like 27, they cannot form the full pairs, so sterile. But Patriot is 36 chromosomes. They can form 18 pairs. So that means occasionally Patriot can produce fertile seed. Tahoma, you cannot reproduce sexually, but Patriot is possible.
Wow, did not know that. I thought they were all unfertile seeds.
But Patriot, there are a little bit of fertility there.
Yeah.
We have not used Patriot because this is extremely difficult to do these things. We just use a normal African Bermuda grass and normal common Bermuda grass to do breeding. But Patriot is a little bit theoretically produce a fertile seed.
Did not know that. Some good info.
Yeah, this is not available in
We should get into not available to the public.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of that, no, I was going to ask you. So we teased about some top secret grasses that you're working on that you were going to give us a little behind the scenes look at, or at least tell us about. Is this true, or was Spin pulling my leg?
Okay. The other day when I talked with Spin, and I said, well, currently I focus on the cold hardy potting green types varieties, Bermuda grass. In the United States, and Dr. Glenn Burden released the first potting type green grass they called Tiff green, 0328. That is performed very well. Well, his friend found a mutation. Later, Dr. Glenn Burden released the Tiff Dolph in the 1965. Tiff Dolph is a mutation of Tiff green, that's no doubt. In the 1990s, close to 2000, several high-quality ultra Dolphs like Tiff Eagle, Champion Dolph, Mini Wordy were released, and these varieties were used, become very popular. They first used the lower South, then mid South. Now they're using Oklahoma, even somewhere in Arkansas. So these grasses perform very good, high quality. We notice that, right? But in the winter, we need to help them. Golf course superintendent need to help them. Need to put tarps on when the temperature drops to the 25 F. Then they remove the tarps when the temperature up to the 45 degree F. Well, that is a good quality, but laborious grass. In this transition zone, my program, we work hard, try to develop something quality similar to these ultra Dolphs, with improved coat hardness. So that means in the winter, they probably very much reduce this covering work. That's my current work. Actually, I have 2 selections, advanced selections, currently in the national test. And they found, they test one location in West Lafayette, that's Indiana.
Yes.
And they found these 2 grasses very coat hardy. Hardness similar to Tahoma 31. So I hope I can help the golf industries a little bit. If you guys, sports managers, like to test them, I would be happy to provide a little bit materials for you.
Oh, wow.
But this must be very high quality. You need to cut them low. Very fine texture. Just like...
Hey, that'd be fun.
Yes, very fine texture. Just like Tiff Eagle. I don't know you guys familiar with these Ultra Doves or not. They are very good quality.
I'm familiar, but I've never seen any of them.
You can come to Stillwater. I can show you.
I would love to.
Yes.
I need to do an LT turf tour. I'd love to.
Oh,
come over there.
yes. Come over here. Have a look. You will like them.
Ben's going to have me over there to Tulsa too. I need to show you guys. I need to show off your handiwork.
Okay, that's great. That's great.
That'd be awesome.
On YouTube and TikTok. Are you on TikTok, Dr. Wu?
No, I'm not, but I like it. Occasionally, friends send something over to me with TikTok.
There you go. So you could be TikTok famous.
Really? Oh, I'm a scientist. I need to focus on my breeding work.
Oh man. Well, I tell you, we have come to the time where I am home and I've got little tools out here crawling up my legs already. So I am going to head out. But like I said, thank you so much, Dr. Wu. And you guys are welcome to ask questions. You guys keep talking. I think this is great, but I've got to get out of here. But I sincerely do. I would love to come over there and see what all you've got going on.
Please contact me.
So if that's a sincere invitation,
so we can arrange time and we can meet in the field and talk and see the grasses.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes, definitely.
That'd be awesome.
Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Wu. And like I said, I'm going to head out, but you guys have fun, and I'll catch up on the recording. I'll listen to it later.
Clear talk with you, Jordan.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
From Lon Burgundy, he wants to know that are sprigs the only viable stolons, characteristics of IE, and can Kentucky bluegrass be sprigged, or is it only rhizomatic? So Kentucky bluegrass, he's asking if you can, take the rhizomes and sprig that. I've never heard of doing that with Kentucky bluegrass.
Yes, well, Kentucky produce pretty good rhizomes, okay?
Yes.
But that's a little bit expensive compared with growing seed. But definitely you can. Some breeders use for small areas or small plots, they use rhizomes. I'm not an expert on Kentucky bluegrass, but I know we can do that. But for homeowners, I would recommend it use a seed. Seed is cheap, easy.
So, Dr. Wu, when you find a good variety and you splice them together or you do your magic and produce this, it just starts out and you grow it in a little pot. And then from there, you take it to the fields and try to expand it and make it bigger so you can get more sprigs? Is that how that works?
Well,
it takes a long time, like 5
exactly, a long time. We normally need 10 to 15 years to develop something, then release into the market, okay? So initially, we make crosses, most time in field, sometime we do crosses in greenhouse, and produce seed, and produce single plant, put a space planted nurseries. Then from there, started about 7 years or 8 years testing. We test turf quality, turf grass quality. We test the coat hardness. We test spring green up. We test disease resistance if we can. We test shade tolerance. We tested salt tensile strength. We test drought resistance. So there's a lot of things I test. So I have a lot of collaborations. Like at Oklahoma State University, I have a collaboration, very close collaboration with Dr. Dennis Martin, yes, Dr. Justin Moss, Dr. Charles Fontanier, Dr. Nathan Walker. This is on the OSU campus. And I also collaborate with a professor from other universities like Kansas State University, Dr. Jack Fry, and UIUC, Urbana-Champaign, that retired professor. I don't know if he retired or not, Dr. Tom Wood. Probably you have never heard that name.
No,
Dr. Wood is turf grass management professor there. And I collaboration with Dr. Ambika Chandra, Dr. Ben Worley, at Texas A&M. I collaborate with Dr. Kenworthy and Dr. Unruh at University of Florida, and Dr. Paul Raymer, Dr. Branchworth at UGA, also Dr. Susanna Mina-Lewis, Dr. Miller, Grady Miller, and North Carolina State University. Also many other collaborators. I collaborate with Mississippi State University, the breeder, and Dr. Hong Ji-deng and Dr. Dace and Serba, that's USDA laboratory at Maricopa, Arizona. So a lot of collaborations.
right. That's a lot of people.
A lot of people work on that. It's a time-consuming job.
Yes. I've got another question from Evie. Evie wants to know, have you ever had any crosses of Bermuda that did not come to market? And I'd imagine you probably had tons.
Oh, I will
make
surprise you. Currently, in the last 10 years, each year we produce plants anywhere between 10,000 to 15,000 plants each year. But every 5 years, I only release the 1 or 2. So you can say every 5 years, we produce probably somewhere between 50,000 to 75,000. Only release 1 or 2. You can say we threw a lot of them, tons of them.
Wow, that's a lot.
A lot. If you in the winter you came to my greenhouse, you will find I have a lot of plants grown there. Just select and throw them. A lot of disappointment there. But finally, you're going to find the good ones.
Yes, you get lucky.
Yes. Well, that depends on the science. Our grasses, we focus one trait that cold hardness. I put germplasm in the Urbana-Champaign, Illinois. They survive winters over there. They must have a cold hardy genes. That's a definite.
Well, you said West Lafayette. You were testing something out of West Lafayette. That's Purdue area.
Yes, a Purdue area.
Yeah.
We tested Manhattan. We tested Purdue. We tested, let's say, we send material to the Philadelphia.
You have Dr. Bigelow at Purdue.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, I know him very well. He went to Patriot on my recommendation there on a football field many years ago. But, Lon Burgundy, do you have a question?
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to first say, hey, Spin, thanks for having me on. And hey, Dr. Wu, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I know we talked recently on our previous Turf Talk about like the differences between commons and hybrids. And we touched a little bit on that. I was wondering if you could go a little bit more in depth in that with like the chromosome count and that sort of thing, and how some are actually seeded variety, but they're able to be called hybrid and whatnot.
Okay. I would use Tahoma 31 as an example, okay? Tahoma 31 has 2 parents. One parent we call the African Bermuda grass. That is a species. Another parent is common Bermuda grass. That's another species. If we're going to a scientific name, African Bermuda grass we call Sanadon transvalensis. Common Bermuda grass we call Sanadon dactylon. Okay, so dactylon has 36 chromosomes in this case, and African Bermuda grass only has 18 chromosomes. So when they produce progeny, Africans contribute 9 chromosomes. Commons contribute 18 chromosomes. So put together, Tahoma 31 has 27 chromosomes. Okay, so we call this is a interspecific hybrid. And common Bermuda grass, seeded Bermuda grass, both parents are common Bermuda grass. Both parents, in most cases, each of them contains 36 chromosomes. So In some cases, they called hybrid, but that intra-specific hybrid or within species hybrid. And Tahoma, that is between species hybrid. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so common Bermuda grass, their progeny are fertile, but Tahoma 31 is not infertile because they are 27 chromosomes, they cannot pair with each other. And the common Bermuda grass, they can pair with each other. So they become fertile.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
There's a lot that goes into developing a new turf.
Yeah,
It's,
that's, we test a lot of things. Once in the winter, we produced about 10 to 15,000 each winter plants. We transplant them into containers. Do you understand what is containers?
yes.
Okay, that is only 1.5 inch wide and probably 80 inches tall. That grow there 3 months, 2 months or 3 months. Then I will do selections. Then narrow down from there to about 1,000 plants, 800 to 1,000 plants. In the spring, I'm going to transplant them into the field. Then probably 2 summers, 2 winters. Then narrow down from that 1,000 plants, let's say, narrow down probably 10 to 20 plants. Then I will send out to Dr. Martin, Dr. Moss, and Dr. Fontanier. A lot of them test in 2 or 3 years. Then they will narrow down probably 2 or 3 plants.
Wow.
Then we go into further studies, draft studies and freeze chamber studies. Then from another 5 or 6 plants narrow down to 1 or 2, then we go to the national test. So in the national test, if they performed very well, we will going to release for commercial production. Because national test is a good thing, untapped. I always encourage a college to check untapped data, National Turf Grass Evaluation Program data. Yeah. That is many locations, okay? You will find spots close to your locations, I believe. Currently, like a present study, they have 19 locations, pretty widespread. There are a lot of information there, traffic, their salt, their cold hardness, their spring green up, their textures, their colors, a lot of information there. Very useful.
So, Dr. Wu, do you normally just do more of a vegetative style stuff, or you guys work on both seeded and vegetative?
I work both seeded and vegetative.
What's the big driving factor for choosing one versus the other for, say, a homeowner?
Okay. Well, for homeowner, depend on many factors. If you're going to purchase sod, that immediate turf grass in your yard, right? That's very quickly. Normally, vegetative varieties like Tahoma or Latitude, North Breed, and others, there are quite a few vegetative varieties on the marketplace because of single genotypes. So your turf looks very uniform. If you have large areas, if you're going to grow seed, that's a little bit cheaper compared to the solid types. Depends what you need, okay? There are some pretty good quality seeded types, like currently Riviera, that's released from Dr. Teafer's program before his retirement from Oklahoma State University. Then Johnston Seed Company released a relatively new variety they call a Monaco. That's a high quality variety. We just signed an agreement with Johnston Seed. They're going to produce a seed from one of my varieties we call OKS 2011-1. Still in production, not in the market, but I hope that's going to 2 or 3 years get into the market. That is a cold hardy, high quality variety.
Are like seeded varieties versus vegetative, or like vegetative more thin blade quality, or can you kind of coax that out of a seeded variety also a little bit more than you normally would?
We have improvement over on the seeded varieties, but There are genetic reasons. Generally say vegetative varieties quality probably a little bit higher than seeded varieties. But for homelands, I would say seeded types is perfect fit, okay? Because some homeland varieties, seeded varieties like I said, Riviera, Monaco, they are very high quality, approaching the best vegetative varieties quality. I would say this way, okay? Vegetative variety like Tahoma, like Latitude, like Northbreed, they are single plant. You just produce clones of a single plant. So they are very uniform. But for the seeded types, they just like a family, okay? Like siblings. Between siblings, there are some similarities, right? Also, there are some differences there. That means they have some advantage or strengths. For example, some plants of the same variety may be disease resistance, others not resistance. Okay, so they have better adaptation to specific environments. There are genetic reasons there. Okay.
Yes, makes total sense.
Yeah.
I have a question from, I think it's Richard. I don't have my glasses on. It says, what does Dr. Wu think of Tiff Grand Bermuda?
Okay. Tiff Grand Bermuda released by Dr. Wen Hanna's program, probably in the 1997 or some years ago. Tiff Grand is a good variety. I would say adapted to the southern states. Okay. In the southern states, these grasses have very dense sod, have pretty good shade tolerance. But I would say in our test, we grown the Tiff Grand in some trials. In some years, got winter killed. I just want to, this is a beautiful grass, but I really want to let you know that. This a little bit shade tolerant, but it's best adaptation in the southern states, okay?
Seth wants to know what will grow good in North Carolina. Well, if you get it from Sandhill Turf, they have 419-2, and I guess they might have Northbridge and Patriot and probably Tahoma.
Okay. Oh, that's great. They just like doing the research.
Yeah, we got another question here from Hungry Southerner. Wanted to know if if Dr. Wu was doing any research using things like the CRISPR, the genetic splicing, to engineer Bermuda, speed up improvement of vegetative varieties versus the traditional hybrid crossbreedings.
Well, that's a good question. Actually, we have interest to do CRISPR. CRISPR is basically a technology produce point mutations, okay? If we have funding agencies can provide funds, we can do that. But now is, turf grass is an important crop, but we have not mature CRISPR technologies to work on that. We have a colleagues here at Oklahoma State University. We talked about that 1 year ago, but we have not studied any solid projects, okay? I hope in the future we have young scientists work on that. That technology is pretty capable. At least now we know they work on the corn, they work on soybean, they work on wheat. Pretty good technology.
From my understanding, the whole CRISPR thing is the gene editing, right? Where you can take
they're called
undesirable things.
Basically, they edit the gene is a segment of DNA, right? DNA formed with 4 bricks, A, T, G, C. This technology can change AT to GC. So we call it mutation technologies. They call it CRISPRs. Genetically, we call that mutations. Okay, so that basically can modify the genes, and sometimes you can improve the genes, convert these undesirable genes to a desirable gene. So that means we modify the DNAs, improve the genetics. There are some potential there, but I was teaching. Well, last semester teaching undergraduate plant breeding class, I always tell them, this new biotechnology is very powerful, but they only targeted one or two genes. And traditional breeding, crossing between two parents, we basically manipulated many genes. Like African Bermuda grass, now we know more than 40,000 genes. Common Bermuda grass, more than 73,000 genes. I collaborate with other scientists to do the whole genome sequencing for common Bermuda grass. So breeders manipulate the whole genomes. And these biotechnologies, they manipulate targeted on the one or two genes. We need to handle the whole genome. We also need this sharp focus technology to target specific genes. They are complementary. Yeah, I hope that we have funding agencies can support that research work with CRISPRs.
Brandon Falk has a question. He apologizes if it's been asked before, but what are the biggest constraints from growing Bermuda in cold climates? Is it overwinter?
Yes, that's probably the largest barriers we need to handle. In the cold areas, survive the winters. In the cold areas, normally they have shorter summers. I talk to many people, in Iowa, and they probably look at it if the cold-hardy materials can grow for the sports field. Many of them say, oh, cold-hardy Bermuda grass not for homelands. They still like cool season grasses for homelands, that have a longer green station period. Okay, but for sports field, they like Bermuda grass traffic tolerance. They like the recurrent capacity of Bermuda grass.
Yes.
Okay, I have a colleague that I send material to the Dr. Toms, associate professor at the Iowa State University. So they grow the latitude North Breed Tahoma 31. So that is cold hardy is very important. Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering, most of the sports fields have heating cables in the soil to keep the soil at warmer temperatures, and I wonder if they can keep Bermuda alive, like in Chicago, if they use the heating coils to keep it warmer in the wintertime. It'd be pretty. I don't think anybody's ever tried it. It'd be pretty neat to experiment it.
Yeah.
To keep
well, that is in the testing territory.
Yeah.
If the soil is warm, I believe it helps Bermuda grass survive. Okay, but many times or sometimes they covered to produce the warm airs. That could be an issue. When you cover something, you give the high temperatures, the moisture is very high. That is the ideal situation for some disease. Leaf spot disease, the PTMs, large patches, they like temperatures in the 60s, 70s, right? High humidity. So need some controls of these things.
Yeah.
Definitely can help Bermudas.
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. You keep the soil warm and the heat's going to come up and evaporate. And then, naturally you want to put a grow tarp on. In Charlotte, North Carolina, when we built the stadium, Mr. Richardson this sounds stupid, but he was scared of heights. So he built the Panther Stadium straight up. So when he was designing it, I looked at the field and the plans, and I told him, we're only going to get 3 hours of sunlight on this field because he built it straight up. So I have no heat on the field, and I told him the next year when the sod is going to wake up from out of dormancy, it will not come in. They took a $2 million heating system out of the budget because they were running out of money when they built the stadium. And I told them, you're going to pay it right back in buying sod. Well, the next year, come spring, April and May, the Bermuda in the stadium did not come back. But the Bermuda on the practice fields, they all came back. Same turf. It was from Sand Hill Turf right there in North Carolina, and they called it Tiff Way 2, 419-2, second generation. First generation is very hard to find anymore. That's not been contaminated, but it never came back. And they didn't believe me, so they would not let me resod the field. So I called a good friend of mine in Florida who knew the sod called G1, Greg Norman, Bermuda, out of Australia.
GN1.
Yes, it was the fastest growing Bermuda at the time. This was 1996. So Greg Norman, I got a lot of this stuff from Davie, Florida. It was out there. They trucked it up to North Carolina, and they had a game in 4 weeks. And I planted it at 850 bushels an acre, and it was ready. It was game ready in 4 weeks. So that is the only way I got to redo the field. So the heat and the cold tolerance is very important, but you need the sunlight too.
Oh, definitely. Bermuda still is Bermuda, right?
Yes.
So Bermuda still needs a lot of sunlight to take up that photosynthesis. Otherwise, Bermuda become weak, they're going to die.
They'll get thinned out, yes.
Yes, exactly.
And then you lose your stability and footing, and it's time to move on to a different sod.
Yeah.
Problem I had in Carolina. I mean, whoever has that field now, I mean, it doesn't get much sunlight at all. And I heard they bring in lights, like Travis Hogan. He brings in lights and covers the whole field with grow lights, at night, and then especially in the winter months. And that's what he does to provide his Bermuda with plenty of sun or artificial lighting, is to do that. So that's how he prolonged his Bermuda.
That may work, but Bermuda grass is still Bermuda grass. They are not very shade tolerant. They need a lot of sunlight, and that's definite.
Yeah, right now I'm growing Tahoma in almost 60% shade. So I'm experimenting. It's doing very well in a shaded area.
Well, Bermuda grass, my colleague, I collaborate with him, Dr. Charles Fontanier, and I put it into the shade. Looks pretty good with shade tolerance.
Yes.
To be honest. That is scientific data, 3 years data. And on the top group, we tested probably many genotypes, many plants. I don't remember exactly how many plants, but after 3 years test, and Tahoma sort of went on the top group in the shade tolerance.
So to kind of go back to the cold tolerance with the Bermuda, is there a certain time and temperature range that it just can't recover from?
Yeah, you are talking about the winter temperatures?
Correct. Yeah, cold temperatures.
Good question. This is actually pretty complex. I make a long story short, okay? Bermuda grass survive the winters basically come from genetics. They must have a good cold hardness genes, okay? This is basic. If they don't have cold hardness genes, your management cannot help, okay? However, even you have cold hardy materials, the management skills or management practice not there, the grass is not healthy, they cannot survive the winters, okay? Even Tahoma 31, arguably, probably Tahoma 31 is currently one of the best cold hardy materials in the marketplace, okay? But if Tahoma 31 have a lot of stresses in the summer, before the winter, these grasses still have difficulties to survive winters, could be killed, okay? So I believe, I always talk with my colleagues, cold hardness come from genetics plus the appropriate or best management practices.
Yes.
Reduce stress, stress like drought, like shade, like traffic, or disease. These kind of factors will affect the cold hardness. If you have a healthy, very healthy plant before the winter dormancy, then your materials will survive winter much better situation.
Comment here or question from Hungry Southerner again.
Mm-hmm.
And he was asking, do you know if research is being done to better understand why certain Bermuda is more shade tolerant versus others to understand the mechanisms? And he said it would that would be improved breeding programs.
Oh, yes, definitely. Actually, my colleague, Dr. Charles Fontanier, one of his research focus on the shade tolerance of Bermuda zoysias, okay? Now we know there are genetic variability for shade tolerance in Bermuda grass, okay? Not all Bermuda grass plants look the same in shade. That's a definite. However, why some grasses have a little bit better shade tolerance than others? He tested and his graduates work on that, and they found one trait they call light compensation point is critical important. That means Bermuda grass genes is different for that we call the light compensation point. At that point, if you give the light, the photosynthesis produces carbons exact same as how much they're going to consume, balance or positive carbohydrates. If that point is low, that is shade tolerant. If that is high, that's not shade tolerant. So if the grasses use less light, produce better or produce carbohydrates, that will be shade tolerant. So that means at low light conditions, if some grasses have good genes, have good photosynthesis, they are shade tolerant. But we have not get the low to the genes, okay? Now we get shade tolerant. We know how to test the shade tolerant from morphology, from field studies. We also know we measured the light compensation point from equipment. Probably in the future, we get down to the deep into the genome, into the DNA, into the genes. That needs some research, real good research. I don't know if I address your question or not, but there are good reasons here. Light compensation point determines a shade tolerance, or highly related to the shade tolerance. If the light compensation point is low, Bermuda grass will be a little bit shade tolerant. If that light compensation point is high, not shade tolerant. I will give you an example, a very bad analogy, but maybe help you, okay? When guy A, person A, eat just a half burger, feel enough. That is a low light compensation point. Another guy B, they need 2 burgers, feel satisfactory. That is a high light compensation point.
Yeah, I'm a 2-burger guy myself.
You're not shade tolerant.
Hungry Southern says, tell him I got it and thank you very much.
Oh, you guys are very welcome.
Well, Dr. Wu, I appreciate your time, and anytime you want to chat and come on, and I think Jordan would really like to come visit your facility up there at OSU.
Oh, you guys are welcome.
You know, I've been there. I've done talks there at the university, so I've.
You're familiar here.
Yes, I've worked with Dr. Moss and Dennis Martin, so I go way back. But yeah, I give lectures there in the hall. You guys got a really nice facility there. I love it, and the stadium is just fabulous. But
Yes, please come back again.
oh yeah, I would love to visit your test plots, and I'd actually like to see some of your work where you're looking into telescopes and looking at all the DNA. That would be awesome to learn and throw something together and probably grow something, you know?
Yeah, I have pretty good DNA lab. You know, I spent probably $500,000
Wow.
in the equipment.
And you guys still have my sample up there? Are you still?
Oh yeah. Let me tell you a story. It just happened this week. Yesterday, today is Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday, I sent a report to Coach Gandhi, our Oklahoma State football coach.
Yes.
He is a very interesting guy. He has a farm-grown Bermuda grass, forage Bermuda grass. And when last week he brought in a sample, he said, wow, he likes this grass, but he doesn't know what this grass is on his farm. We we collect DNA and let my technicians do the DNA markers. And yesterday I sent a report to him. You know, he grown we use a DNA figure out his plant is old variety. They call it greenfield Bermuda grass. Just like, you know, when a baby you find in the US that actually is born in China, you find who is parent, right?
Yeah.
Use the DNAs. That's my lab's work. We have pretty good equipment.
That is really impressive. I would love to take a tour up there. That'd be awesome. I'd be in heaven.
Sure.
You know, because I really appreciate what you do for the industry, you know, and no one sees this type of work. And if it wasn't for you and your team, we would not be where we're at today with Sportsfield's Latitude and Patriot And Tahoma 31 and all the new varieties that are coming out are actually making the game excel, and all the athletes that play on these fields, you know, you don't have to worry about, you know, the grass, if it's going to hold up and stuff. And you guys are really doing a terrific job for the industry. And I appreciate all your hard work.
Oh, that's our pleasure. You know, we have that pleasure work for the industry, the turf industry.
Okay, then we'll wrap it up. Thank you, Dr. Wu.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.